Hey everybody, it's TotalGamerJunkie. I want to welcome you all back to my channel. In this video, I want to discuss a theory that was suggested to me by one of my subscribers, Nunu Gonzalez, who had an interesting theory about Safi's death, and he speculates that Max switched timelines before Safi's death, and I found this to be very interesting and I wanted to discuss it with all of you. Now, as we all know, Safi dies, then Max discovers she can switch to an alternate timeline where she's alive, and switching between her timeline and the other timeline, she has to both solve and prevent Safi's murder. But what if Safi didn't die in Max's timeline? What if instead she died in this alternate timeline? Now, if you all remember Life is Strange 1, how does it open? It opens with Max in the storm, having no idea how she got there. And then, once the lighthouse almost crushes her, she wakes up. Yet, Max doesn't have the ability to rewind time until she witnesses Chloe getting shot. So could this be a very similar thing? Because just like her power to freeze time in episode 2, her power to see into the future, we only see that twice. We see it in episode 1 at the beginning, and then we see it at the end. But the difference with the first vision is that Max hadn't got her powers yet. What if this is very similar? What if the moment Max takes a picture of the owl, she passes out and slips into an alternate timeline? Now, if you take a look here, shortly after Max hears the gunshot, you see this red mist. And it looks very similar to the other mists in the game, the ones where Max sees a point where a pulse, to be specific, it looks like a red pulse we see here, and throughout the game Max is going to find these pulse points which allows her to switch between realities. So this one appears to be red, and so far what I've seen in the reveal stream and the trailer, I haven't been able to see any other red pulses. We then get this shot of Safi sitting on the bench, and if you look you can see that mist again. So look at this screenshot and then look at the next one. You can see on Safi's jacket and her character, especially, it's for a brief second, but it appears that it's like a fade, like a shh. That's the sound I hear when Max touches her, it's kind of like the wind blowing. And I was thinking, okay, red mist, surely this is just maybe part of the game, it has nothing to do with anything, until I remembered there's something else red that we will end up seeing later on in the game. We actually saw it in the trailer, and it's one of the two moons. Now, I don't have much to add about the moon or the red mist, but I think it's very interesting what this could imply. If Max jumped to this alternate timeline where Safi dies, and Max is jumping back to her original timeline where Safi is alive, what does this mean for the possible romance options? Now, if I had to take a shot in the dark, what we see here with the two moons, and then we see the detectives seeing his alternate self, it's clear that reality is starting to break apart, and my guess is Max is going to have to pick one of the two timelines. And that's very interesting if you think about it, because what if well, actually not what if, I do believe what's going to happen is, if you choose one of the two romance options, then they're going to be in one timeline, and then Safi is going to be in another timeline. Well, Safi's going to be alive in one timeline, but I think the romance options are going to be in the timeline where Safi is dead. And clearly Max is going to have to choose one of those realities. She's going to have to do something, because we see at the end in this shot here, it appears that Max is switching between one reality to go to the other one, but I think this is towards the very end of the game, and Max is going to have to choose between one of the two realities, because it looks like she has, even though it's for a short, 2 to 3 seconds, it looks like Max is struggling more to open this pulse than the others in the game. Now, if we go back to before Safi's death, we can see her up there by the light. She's on the phone talking, and then in the next shot we see her with her camera in her hand sitting on the bench dead. that's actually an inconsistency here, because Max hears a gunshot and then she sees Safi on the phone talking. So I think what's happening is she hears a gunshot, and this is in her timeline. Then she goes up, she sees Safi in the other timeline talking on the phone, and then she switches back to her timeline where Safi is dead. Or vice versa, it's Safi is alive in her timeline and she's gone to the parallel timeline where Safi's dead. Whichever it is, we know from Life is Strange 1 that Max's powers tend to go on the fritz from time to time. So who's to say this isn't happening now? Who's to say that when we play double exposure, Max is gonna get headaches, and rather than lose her ability to rewind, she's gonna end up switching between realities on a whim, and she's not gonna be in any control of that, just like in the comic. So that's the end of this video. Not really my best, but I didn't have a lot to work with. But I do have other theory videos coming out with more detail in them. I finished my first 20-minute video. As I've checked the poll, it's clear that you people want a 1-hour video as opposed to 3 separate 20-minute videos. So I finished one of those. My second video is nearly done. And I don't know if I can get it to an hour, but I'm pretty confident that I'll get them past the 50-minute mark. So if you have any theories, please let me know. Leave them in the comments below and I'll give you my thoughts on them and see if I can find any evidence to back them up. This is TotalGamerJunkie, signing off.